Thank you so much for joining us for this special hangout. We've got some amazing guests with us, and everybody has one thing in common, their love and passion for sports and fitness. We have an amazing panel. We have Sam Cass from the White House Let's Move campaign, also Peter Moore with Men's Health. We also have Olympians Rachel Flatt, who is a figure skater, and bobsledder Kurt Tomasevich. Also joining us is two-time CrossFit Games champion Rich Froning and our very own local Houston Texan, Jared Crick. Thank you all so much. Joining me here in the studio is astronaut Mike Hopkins and lead strength and conditioning coach Mark Williams. So thanks again, everyone. This is going to be a great discussion. I know we have a lot to cover. I kind of wanted to start with you, Mike, since this is a little bit triggered by your upcoming mission, first-time spaceflight flyer. But why don't you just start by talking about how you grew up being so active outdoors, growing up in Missouri?
Yeah, that sounds great. So first of all, I just want to say thanks to all the folks, the panel, for coming out here today. I'm really excited to speak and to hear your stories and to share or hear about your experiences as well. So actually, all of you are very motivational to me, and so I'm, like I said, I'm very excited about this. So just jumping right in, you know, sports has always been, sports and athletics and staying fit has always been a big part of my life from growing up, whether it was playing on the farm or once I got into middle school and high school of playing on sports teams. And then that, I was very fortunate to be able to continue that into college and being able to play football at the University of Illinois. And then from there, it kept with me. And so even throughout my career in the Air Force, working out and staying fit and participating on intramural teams was always important. And then I got this wonderful opportunity to come to NASA and be an astronaut. And lo and behold, physical fitness is a huge part of our training and what we do as well. And so, so I'm just very excited to be able to share that love and that passion of fitness and how it applies to being an astronaut in life in space and hopefully get other people motivated about fitness as well and maybe a little motivated about space.
So this is great. Just earlier today, we kicked off the Train Like an Astronaut program, which is actually part of the White House Let's Move campaign. So Sam, maybe you want to talk a little more about that initiative, which also strives to encourage kids to be active?
Absolutely. You know, everybody wants to train like an astronaut, right? No better way to train. So thanks for having me. We're so excited to be here today. You know, our physical fitness is one of the greatest indicators of our health, and the lack of physical activity in our daily lives is, you know, has been a real, taking a real toll on the health and well-being of our children. And so the First Lady is really calling everybody coming together, uniting around our kids' health and well-being, to ensure they're getting the healthy food that they need and the activity that they need to thrive and hopefully one day become an astronaut. And we're seeing great progress. We've launched a lot of programs in schools. Let's Move Back to Schools program to really make sure our schools are facilitating kids being active. But we know we got to get our kids moving. I'm a lifelong athlete, and so I've seen it in my life, and we see it in kids across the country about what not just athletics, but also just being active can do, not only for their physical health, but also their mental. And we know that our kids perform better on math tests and reading comprehensions if they're getting the activity that they need. So I'm so excited to be here. I can't wait to hear questions and ask some questions. I will say I have to admit that I have a savings account that one day hopefully will get me to outer space. It's my greatest dream in life. And so I don't know, maybe if you got an extra seat, I could hop on board for your next mission. I'll work out. I'll do whatever you want me to do. But yeah, it's great to be here.
Maybe we should have added that as an incentive for the Train Like an Astronaut program.
Well,
Free ride.
The Soyuz is pretty tight. There's not a lot of extra room in it, even for the three of us that are planning to go up. So I'm not sure if we can find room for you on this one, but maybe in the future when we have some commercial vehicles going up, there'll be an opportunity.
All right. I'll work out. I'll train like an astronaut until then.
That sounds great.
So you touched on a couple points. I know, Peter, you also, I think, are very athletic, and childhood obesity has been kind of a special issue for you, too. You kind of focused on that earlier in your career. Maybe you could jump in and talk a little bit about that as well.
Hey, I want to address something first, though. Sam Katz told us that his dream was always to be in Men's Health magazine, rather than about how he wanted to go into space. So I don't know what the heck is with that, Sam. I'm a little offended. But he did a great job. We also had this guy in the magazine.
Not bad.
talking about healthcare, which was pretty awesome. But yeah, I've done a lot of work on childhood obesity in Men's Health, in part because about half of the guys who subscribe to Men's Health are dads. And, you know, we really are in kind of an unprecedented moment in the health of our kids right now, because so many of the adult diseases that we think of as, you know, the things that will catch us when we're 75 and 80 are actually affecting, you know, kids in their early teens. You know, they used to call type 2 diabetes adult onset diabetes because you had to be an adult basically to reach the point in your life where you could develop the symptoms. They don't do that anymore. The adult onset thing has gone away. Now we call it type 2 diabetes because so many kids are suffering from it. You know, I don't want to be a big downer here. In fact, the rates of obesity have leveled off now. It shows we're doing some good work as a culture, but you know, clearly there's a lot more work that needs to be done. And you know, the First Lady's Let's Move program is a great part of that. But I guess that, you know, the last thing I would say is that really, you know, weight is a family issue. It's not a matter of pointing fingers at kids and saying, you know, it looks like you're putting on a few, you got to take care of that. Really, what's going to happen is that if moms and dads and kids and families work on this stuff together, both the food aspect and the exercise aspect, that's where the real progress is going to be made. And really, who among us, you know, parents or kids, can't afford to, you know, do a little bit better, do a little bit more, eat a little better, and you know, that's why I really applaud what the First Lady is doing, and probably Sam's doing most of the work on that, right, Sam?
You know, I'm pulling my weight, but
Yeah.
I couldn't agree with more with what you said, and this is something that we have to address in the context of the entire family, and ensure that the family is getting the supports that they need to make the best choices. So the stakes are high for our country, but I'm optimistic that we're on the right track.
Hey, Sam, I don't know if this is an out of bounds question, but I'll go ahead and ask it. Do you get a sense that the First Family, as busy as they are and, you know, jetting around the world and all the stuff that they have, I mean, do those Obama girls have time to work out too? Are they following Dad's example?
Oh, absolutely. One thing in this family is that, you know, they practice what they preach, both from what we eat to, you know, making sure we're getting plenty of activity. You know, the First Lady, we eat balanced my plate style meals, but it's all about moderation, so that after, you know, if you have a cheeseburger once in a while or some pizza, it's no big deal. But day in and day out, we're having fruits and vegetables and whole grains, lean protein, etc. And yes, those girls get plenty of exercise, doing all kinds of different activities and sports. And so, no, there's no question. They're walking the walk.
Yeah, I'm wondering, now Sasha's the older girl, right?
Malia is the older girl.
Okay, so last time I saw a picture of Malia, she looked like she's about as tall as her dad. Does she have a lefty layup like he does?
You know, I can't. I'm not going to compare the layups. You know, there's nothing good in that for me. But yeah, they're a talented family all the way around.
Cool.
Okay,
We're all watching.
we managed to not have an NBA player on here, but I think we've got the full suite of other athletes. So I want to definitely bring them in. And speaking of diets, I was kind of reviewing, Rich, your background, and I think you were pretty open about you're really lucky you don't really stick to a strict diet regimen. You have the privilege of being able to eat what you want. Can you talk to us a little bit about the training you're in right now and how you keep healthy and fit?
Yeah, so, you know, we talk a lot about in CrossFit either the paleo diet, which is a more naturalistic type diet, or the zone diet where you balance your insulin spikes. But with the amount of training volume and stuff that I'm doing, especially right now, calories are calories. And, you know, at the end of the day, I'm probably putting in right about 6 or 7 hours of training. And then leading up to the game starts next week, actually. So we show up on Monday, and we don't really know what the first event or really when the first event is. So you just kind of gotta hope you got enough energy from the food that you've taken in. So, but you know, for health reasons, and when I'm done competing, you know, there's what we call the paleo diet, or you know, a more minimalist diet where you're eating whole foods versus processed stuff. For health reasons, is definitely beneficial.
Gotcha.
So, Rich, I think a lot of us out here are jealous of of your ability to eat whatever you want. That man, I wish I could do that. I haven't been able to do that since I was playing football, but I certainly recognize that all that time you're putting out in the gym and all that is a big reason for that. So, and I do want to say as well, good luck next week. I know it's a big week for you, and I hope all the best for you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and a lot of people get caught up in, well, Rich eats whatever he wants, but there's a lot of work that goes into it. It's not just, and as much as I say I eat as much as I want to, throughout the day, I'm usually taking in protein shakes and stuff like that versus actual meals. And then at night, to catch up on calories, really. And it's still, I try to eat as healthy as possible. I take in good fats for energy and stuff like that. I'm not just eating ice cream and all that type of stuff. So I'm still eating relatively healthy, but I'm not sticking to, your caveman diet, as they call it. So
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, you guys, all you can see is Rich's head there, but this is what he looks like in Men's Health magazine.
Wow.
Beard too.
Check that out, huh?
Yeah.
He must be eating the right stuff.
That's amazing.
He's doing something right.
You bet.
Well, speaking of being in active training, I know Rachel and Kurt likewise, and even Jared, you're getting ready for the upcoming football season. Maybe you guys can jump in and talk about your training and how much diet plays into that.
Yeah, I'll jump on that a little bit. I also played college football in Nebraska, actually, just like Jared did. And Mike, I know you said you played in Illinois too.
Yeah, I'm feeling a little outnumbered.
I started bobsledding, and this is my 10th year of bobsledding. So I've really been an athlete for quite a while, and I've seen how my diet has had to change in order to maintain my top level of athleticism. Like when I was in college, and I'm not sure how old you are, Rich, I guess, but I could eat anything I wanted. And I could stay pretty active that way. But at age about 24, 26, my appetite got a little bit smaller. I couldn't eat as much, and it took me a little bit longer to recover from workouts and that sort of thing. So, and I think as males, at least, as we age as athletes and try to stay fit, I think our diet changes quite a bit.
And Kurt, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm hearing from our technical folks, the audio's a little bad. If you could just speak a little louder, but we still want to hear from you.
Okay, I can try it again. I don't know if this is any better.
That sounds better already.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Not sure what happened there. No, I was saying that I played college football as well at Nebraska, just like Jared did. And, when I was in college, I could eat anything I wanted as well. And Rich, I'm not sure how old you are, I guess, but, about age 23, 24, I really learned that my appetite changed quite a bit. My diet had to be altered in order to maintain the top level of fitness. It probably changed again when I got to about age 28, 29, and I'm now 32. So I think it's a key point to mention that, as you age, you try to stay fit, your diet will change. Sometimes you can, down 6,000 to 7,000 calories a day and be able to stay fit, but when you get a little bit older, your body doesn't react the same type of way. So.
And I think probably a lot of it also is just the nature of the food you're eating. Like Rich was saying, whole foods, better quality food versus some of the lesser. Rachel, you want to chime in? We'd love to hear from you as well.
Well, I'm currently a student at Stanford University, so, and Mike, I'm sure you're quite familiar with it. I really do try and keep an active lifestyle, especially when I'm training and spending some very late nights doing homework. I do my best to keep a normal eating and training regimen as I'm training for competitions, especially with the rigors of my academic career. So, making working on that balance every day can be quite challenging at times, but you do your best to make sure that you're giving your body what it needs at the end of the day so you can recover and train for the upcoming competitions.
And what are you studying at Stanford? I'm curious. And Kurt, I think you have a degree in astronomy, right? Or maybe that's Jared. Somebody else has that.
I have a minor in astrophysics. My degree is in electrical engineering, so is pretty rare.
Okay.
Gotcha.
And I'm majoring in biology, planning to be a medical student and going to pediatric orthopedics.
Wow, that's great.
Sorry, Mike, not going to be an astronaut, even though I'd love to. Mike, that's my cousin's goal, though.
Maybe not yet. We have doctors and biologists and
that's right.
a few engineers. So.
And to be honest, I've always dreamed of being an Olympian. So I'm very jealous of what you two are doing and your accomplishments as well.
Okay, well, I would love to turn it over to Jared, who's also here in Houston and part of our local NFL team with the Houston Texans. So, Jared, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. The one thing I'll add about nutrition, it's a little different for me being a defensive lineman. I got to keep weight on opposed to losing it. And down here in the Houston heat, the biggest thing for me is staying hydrated. I drink upwards to about 12, maybe 13, 14 ounces or glasses of water a day just to keep up. And for me, eating, I got to eat a lot to keep my energy up. With this heat, it'll drain you. And, going into fall camp right now, the biggest thing is going to be keeping my energy up, keeping the nutrients in, and replenishing after every practice. Like I said before, the heat, it's something else down here. So nutrition definitely plays a crucial role in what I do.
Yeah. So I think it's also really important in spaceflight. If I remember correctly, a lot of people experience a little bit of weight loss, don't eat as much. I don't know about drinking in space, but is that something they've talked to you about to get ready for the mission? Like how do they prepare you for that?
And I'm sure Mark can talk a little bit on this as well, but anecdotally, I've certainly heard that sometimes your appetite does change. You maybe don't eat quite as much as you're used to or you normally do. Some of that can have, particularly in those first few weeks when you're adapting to life in space, you may not just feel great as well, and so that might curb your appetite a little bit. But the fortunate thing is we've got a food lab here and nutritionists that are very concerned about our diet, and so we're very lucky because they put together our menu. I don't have to really think a lot about what I'm going to eat. There's something there for me that I'm sure I'll like as well. And I don't know, Mark, if you have anything to add on how much weight guys lose when they first get up there.
We usually see about an 8 to 10 pound loss sometimes, and then usually by the end of the mission they've gained that back. And like Mike said, it usually changes. At the beginning they kind of lose appetite, but as it moves on, they're eating most of the time more calories than they are down here, because you are actually they are more active up there. They're up more hours during the day doing more work, so they stay pretty active. Yeah. So
actually, Jared, I'm just kind of curious if I could ask a question here for Jared. How much weight are you typically losing in a 2-a-day practice in August in Houston?
The most I've lost is about 10 pounds in one day. And that was, after drinking during the practice and, staying as hydrated as I could. But most about 10 pounds. But usually it's on average about 5, and that's for everybody. It's just the amount of water that you lose during a practice. It's hard to keep up, and you really can't replace what you lose during the practice. So it's crucial, after the practice to get in your supplements and as well as rehydrate.
Yeah. Rich, do you find the same thing during the competitions with CrossFit, that you really have to try and keep your intake up while you're competing?
To be honest, training here in Tennessee is a little bit different than training in California when I actually compete at the games. The humidity is miserable in Tennessee, so when you go to California, it's hot, but it's not anything near the same heat as it is back home. So my hardest part is training leading up to the games, is trying to stay hydrated, trying to get out of the heat every once in a while when I can, because it's just muggy and I sweat like crazy anyway. It's, I can lose 3 to 4 pounds in a workout, and my workouts aren't 2 to 3 hours like his are. So it all depends.
Yeah. Right.
Hey, Mike, I have a question for you. Are you familiar with an astronaut named Sunita Williams?
Absolutely.
Well, I don't know if all the people who are watching know that she famously ran a Boston Marathon on a treadmill, finished it in 4 hours and 20 minutes. Well, I think she was orbiting the Earth. I wonder, Mike, if you have any plans to show Sunita up and maybe do a triple Ironman or something up there.
Yeah, well, I don't think you can show Sunny up. She's a pretty incredible person, a pretty incredible runner in her own right. I was actually hoping that I'd have an opportunity to maybe compete in the CrossFit Games from on orbit. Unfortunately, the timing's not going to work out real well. I don't get up there till September, and as Rich said, they're competing next week in that. So I'm not sure. Well, and I may just try and do some of that, the open workouts where they put out an exercise or a routine, a workout of the day, and you film that. So we'll see.
Yeah, the follow-up question that I had, I've been reading about what kind of workouts you guys do up there once you're in orbit, and I'm seeing that, it's actually built into your work duties for the day, and then you can be exercising 2 to 4 hours while you're up there to fight that muscle loss that inevitably happens. I guess what I'm really wondering is how you fight boredom as an exerciser when you're doing it, 2 hours a day. I do it because I tend to play a lot of sports, so you're interested in the game, and that keeps you motivated. I wonder how you make it through a 2-hour workout.
Yeah, so the nice thing about working out on orbit is you actually are in orbit, so you're floating around, and so I think that in itself probably relieves a little bit of the boredom. And then the other amazing thing is the ARAD, which is our adaptive resistive exercise device. So that's our squat rack. It definitely looks a little bit different, but it accomplishes a lot of the same exercises for us. But when you're on that, you're actually right over the cupola. And so you've got the earth floating by underneath you as you're doing a squat or a deadlift. So probably the hardest part is going to be not hurting myself by getting distracted as the earth's going by.
Yeah.
Well, you be careful, all right?
I'll do that.
I actually have a question, if you don't mind.
No.
For Rachel, I'm curious, I haven't followed, to be honest, figure skating very much, but I'm curious, how much strength training do figure skaters actually do?
Well, most skaters tend to avoid doing a lot of major strength training just to ensure that they don't bulk up, because in skating you really want to keep a lean, fit body. So a lot of us will do like yoga and Pilates. I work out here over at the OTC, but you do a lot of body mass exercises. So you use your own body mass to work on training your muscles and doing all those sorts of things. And especially with regards to cardiovascular training, we do our best to do a lot of anaerobic training earlier in the season, a lot of aerobic training prior to that in our preseason. So it's quite a bit of work, but it is a little bit different from what some of the athletes might do, like from what Kirk does in the weight room every day. He does incredible strength training for bobsled, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess ours is quite a bit different from Rachel's, where I'm doing a lot of resistant training, squats, cleans, resistant sprints, anything to get stronger and faster and bulk up and put on mass without hurting our aerodynamics of our sled. So most of my work is resistance work, and so it's really interesting to hear about the adaptive resistance mechanism that you guys use up in space. But I also want to ask Mike and Mark, Rachel and I are training here in Colorado Springs. We're about at 6,000 feet, and my sport is all about power, short bursts of power, and so my endurance is very low. If you asked me to run 200-meter dash, I'd probably pass out, but I can run 50 meters pretty good. So the training at altitude, affects athletes in different ways. So I was just kind of curious, when you're up in space and you're training and that sort of thing, I understand that, it is pressurized up there and everything, but, about what altitude, could you compare being inside the space station or wherever you are with, what altitude on Earth would that be with oxygen tanks and that sort of thing?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and the altitude that we're at is basically where we're sitting right now. So it's sea level. We're at about 14.7 psi, so that's kind of the standard. Now, I like your idea, though. I hadn't thought about that, of maybe changing the pressure in the station so that we can train like we're up at 6,000 feet. I don't know if I can get the engineers to go with that, but that's a neat idea.
Maybe want to be careful with that one.
Yeah, just a little bit. Hey, I actually have a question for Kurt. I'm just one of the things I've noticed from my time playing football at Illinois, which was back in the late 80s, early 90s, and I know you're about a decade after me, but I've seen a huge change in the way we worked out back then to what we're doing now, and I think what I see Rich doing, et cetera, where there's a little bit, when I was training in Illinois, a lot of weights, and then running was kind of a separate activity as well. We didn't combine those as much as what I feel like I see now in this CrossFit. So I'm just curious for you, Kurt, have you noticed that change from when you were playing at Nebraska and how that's evolved, I guess, over the last 20 years?
Possibly. You know, you say I came a decade after you, and I think Jared's close to a decade after me, so he might be able to add more to this after I'm done here. But yeah, when I was in college, you know, there was a great strength and conditioning program in Nebraska under Boyd Epley, and you know, I learned a lot. And mostly, you know, I would say probably over half of our conditioning was done in the weight room and with the running workouts as compared to just with football practice. There was a great balance of winter conditioning and summer conditioning in between fall football and spring football. So year round, you know, there was a lot of workouts. They were continually doing research, you know, trying to find better ways and, you know, different ways to you know, adapt to different athletes because, you know, each athlete, each position, you know, required different types of workouts. So, you know, it was a lot like bobsled training that I do now, where it's, you know, building up strength and power for, you know, big bursts of energy. But yeah, I think it has changed quite a bit.
Hey, as long as we're doing the Kurt and Rachel show here, I had a question for the two of you. Like, you both have very different, you know, sports. Rachel's obviously in a finesse sport. Kurt's in a power sport. But I think that one of the things that you guys would both have to deal with is fear, in that both of your sports in their own way are pretty dangerous, actually. I mean, do you guys pay attention to mental training in addition to your physical training, as you know, as you look at these enormously difficult tasks that you have to carry out?
Absolutely. You know, mental training is hugely important to what we do, especially when we get on the Olympic stage. You know, we've trained so hard at that point, and it's all muscle memory, but it really comes down to the mental game. And if you can prepare yourself to the point where you can perform under any amount of pressure in any situation and really be flexible with that. So for me, you know, that involves a lot of visualization and doing a lot of simulations and practice before I do the competition to ensure that I really feel prepared prior to the competition.
I guess conversely to what Rachel does, I think our mental training is to train ourselves not to think. You know, if you think about what you're doing, going 80, 90 miles per hour, you know, on the edge of out of control, you know, that's when you can't let the mental side of things creep in and cause negative thoughts, and you don't want that at all. So the less you can think about what you're going to do, maybe the better. But, you know, at the same time, you know, that's what makes our sport exciting, is that there is that fear. And, you know, if you can overcome that fear, that adrenaline rush every time, you know, that's what makes it fun in a way, I guess.
Okay, in that case, Kurt, I withdraw the question.
Yeah.
Actually, while we're talking about the mental parts, I'm just curious for like Jared, for example, if you had any major injuries in your career, and you know, you talk about that mental piece. I just a couple years ago blew out my first ACL. And that's the first major knee injury that I had, and I have to say that one of the hardest parts was mentally coming back from that and being confident in my knees, in my joints to continue working out. I don't know, Jared, if you had any of those experiences.
Actually, I have. I had my senior year of college cut short. I had torn my pec muscle, and that sat me out for the entire year. And like you said about the mental part, you know, just wondering if you're going to come back 100%. That was the biggest thing for me. It seemed like recovery took forever. I wasn't going fast enough. I wasn't sure if my strength was going to be back to where it was. And, you know, it took a while for me to trust in my arm again. And it took probably somewhere mid, you know, season last year until I finally felt, okay, it's not going to tear again. It's, you know, it's back to where it was. I can go full bore again.
Yeah, well, wait till you're 40, Jared. That recovery.
Or 50.
For Team NASA, I'm curious to know, like, in the training, you know, to go, you know, to outer space, is there anything different that you specifically trained for that would be different than, say, any of the other sort of just basic differences in how folks are training for their different sports? But are there particular things about being in outer space that either, you know, that you're doing preparing, you know, on planet Earth, or once you get out there that you have to be extra aware of that, like, when I'm in the gym, I would never even think of?
Yeah, I'll take the first cut at that, and then I'll turn it over to Mark, because I know he's going to be able to get a little bit more specific on it. But one of the things that we do here on Earth, and we have to spend time training on, is the actual equipment that we have on orbit, and understand how to use it, and because there are limitations to it, and it's very critical to our space flight and to our own health. And so we want to make sure we're using it in the right ways and when we don't break it and all of those kind of things. Because if those pieces of equipment go down, that's a bad day on station, and that takes maybe the toilet would take priority if it broke, but when the ARAG goes down, you're jumping on that to make sure that you get it fixed. So a lot of the training that we do on the ground is going to mirror the types of exercises that we're able to do up on orbit. And Mark, I don't know if you want to add to that a little bit.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that one of the things that we deal with in spaceflight that we don't normally deal with in a 1G, or we don't think about it much, is bone loss. Bone loss in space is accelerated. We see about 1% a month. So what we try to do with the resistive exercise device is mitigate as much of that as we can, and we do that by manipulating the volume, the weight that the astronaut's actually lifting, the changing of exercises. Every day it's something different, and we're trying to basically, for simple, is to try to trick the body into thinking that it doesn't know what stimulus is coming, and it never has a time to adapt to any one particular thing. So that's one of the things that is a little bit different in flight. Other than that, the loss of strength and aerobic, we do the same things. We're going to train aerobically to gain cardiovascular fitness, and we're going to train strength to gain muscle strength and muscle endurance and power. So no, it's pretty much the same.
You just described CrossFit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually interesting you say that, Rich, because a lot of what we are doing now involves workout of the days and involves exercises that I guess are doing more than, again, like when I was playing football, you just lifted weights. Now you're doing this whole host of exercises in a row in 20 minutes, doing as many as you can. And that's certainly been something new for me, and it gets your heart rate going.
But can you help me understand how that works without gravity?
How what works?
How, like, I assume that, like, the fact that there's no gravity would have an impact on, what kind of exercises are in play. Like, what would CrossFit look like if you're floating?
Well, it's not, well, in flight it's going to be different. We haven't decided what we're going to do with that yet, but we're still going to focus on the main activities that are the main exercises, which for us are squats in many different forms, deadlifting in many different forms, pressing, shoulder press, push press, that kind of stuff. All these things, we can still do those in flight with the resistive exercise device. It's going to be how we put those together with running on the treadmill at the same time and moving over and doing something else. That's where it's going to get a little tricky. We haven't kind of figured that out yet. We have a little bit of time to work on that.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
That sounds tricky.
Yeah, Sam, because actually one of the things that happens, there's a little more overhead associated with getting on the treadmill, for example. So it's not like I can sit there and do some deadlifts and then just float over to the treadmill and start running. I actually have to put on a harness. I have to strap myself into the treadmill. And so that in itself is going to take away from some of the benefits of the things that Rich is doing, where he's doing 20 pull-ups and then immediately jumping down and doing burpees and then running, or all these kind of things. And it's a little harder for us to do that in the zero gravity environment.
I think this is all a lesson to the rest of us who don't have to strap on an apparatus to get our weightlifting in. We can just do the work. Here on Earth, none of us has that much of an excuse for not doing it. We just have to make sure we organize our days to take care of it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but it's interesting you say that, because we certainly don't have an excuse in orbit either, because they put it on our schedule. And
part of the paycheck, right?
That's part of the paycheck. Yeah, actually, that's one of the great things about it. And in fact, most of us here on this panel, right? I mean, can you ask for anything better where you actually get paid to work out? Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
All right,
Sorry.
No. I was just going to jump in because we did solicit some questions by Twitter, so I was going to just throw in a couple of those real quick.
Oh, okay.
So one is from @Willow1988, who asks, is it all about balance, or is it to do with packing on muscle before spaceflight, as muscle mass is affected in space?
Yeah, so I certainly wouldn't say it's packing on muscle. I'm not trying to do that. It's a balanced approach. It's much like more the CrossFit style of workouts.
I would say what we do is we look at, from a training perspective, we look at each individual astronaut and we take away strengths and weaknesses, and we're going to focus on weaknesses a little bit more in their training, and the strengths we're not going to emphasize as much. So we try to get a much more balanced approach through strength, endurance, power, anaerobic, aerobic fitness, agility, coordination. You throw out anything dealing with athletics, we're gonna try to make it as balanced as we possibly can.
And another probably an important part is what's going to happen, what that crew member is going to need to do during mission. Because, for instance, if it's a crew member who's going to be doing spacewalks, there might be different workouts. I know, especially for the females, right, to make sure they've got the upper body strength to do certain tasks. So that's something else that's looked at pre-flight.
Yes.
And would you say on orbit and especially post-flight is even more critical as far as the training that you're doing with the crew members?
Well, the post-flight, I would say, the in-flight just to mitigate it, and that is important. And the more we can mitigate, the easier the post-flight is going to be. You know, they're going to recover much more quickly. So, you know.
Gotcha. And Rich, I definitely didn't want to interrupt you, so please go ahead with your question.
No problem. It's about the apparatus that you guys use. Is it more like a band tension, or I don't know, how does it really work?
Yeah, I don't know if I can actually answer how it really works. You should see the thing. It's pretty amazing. The folks that put this thing together, it actually, you know, we have a bar that looks like you cut the two ends off of a weight bar where you put the weights, and so from where your hands are going and everything, it looks very similar to what you're using on a daily basis. But the difference comes in is how we get that load, and we actually have these two chambers that we have a vacuum in, and so we're pulling against that vacuum, and we're able to dial in how much weight we want. I don't think we can probably get up to the kind of weights you're lifting, but
well, the other thing, it goes up to 600 pounds, so we can get up to 600 pounds on it.
That's awesome.
Now the thing you got to realize though is that when you get to space, you take away your body weight.
Right.
So we have to add. So like for squats, we add back in 75% of his body weight into whatever he's squatting in 1G.
Gotcha.
Now you're pinpointing that one load just on that back. So now there's some back issues. So you kind of got to balance that a little bit.
There's a balance.
The other thing that's very interesting about ARED is that within that vacuum canister, we have these little flywheels that kind of rotate and spin, and we add those in to create like an inertia. So you almost get a gravity effect. So you know how you can feel the weight changing direction. It's not just a constant
oscillation in there. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I actually have a question I could throw out there to everybody. You know, I know, Sam, and your involvement with the Let's Move, and we're here talking a little bit about the Train Like an Astronaut program. Are there any other kind of activities that the rest of you are doing to try and help motivate kids, or working with kids, or even adults, or anything like that I'm not aware of and you'd like to share with us?
I guess I can answer first. I won't take credit for doing it in an official capacity or anything, but I do try to get to many high schools and many elementary schools and talk about health and fitness and that sort of thing. And it drives me crazy when kids think that playing Wii is physical activity. You know, I just want to get these kids outside, play outside, do some kind of game, eat breakfast in the morning before they go to school, just try to give them some kind of incentive for doing the right thing.
You know, one of the things that we've been really talking up a lot is making note of how school physical education programs have really been under attack, especially in tough budgetary times for our governments. Listen, I get that. You know, school districts have to balance their budgets just like everyone else does. But really, the more we learn about it, the more we see that there's very much a connection between physical activity and mental performance in the classroom. So that's one of the causes that we champion very strongly at Men's Health, which is defending physical education in our schools and letting parents know that that's as important a part of their education as mathematics is.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I know for me, just personally, if I don't get my workout in the morning, man, mentally the rest of the day it's just not right.
So Mike, I have a question for you. This is a huge part of what we do as elite athletes, and I'm sure Jared and Rich are quite familiar with this. But we do a huge amount of training volume throughout the day, and so when we're done training, we obviously have to help our body recover. Excuse me. So we do a lot of contrast fasts with a hot tub and a cold plunge where you subject yourself to the wonderful task of 105-degree hot tub for 2 minutes, and then you're into a freezing cold tub of 45, 50 degrees, which is not wonderful, but it helps the circulation and helps get some of the lactic acid out of your body. Doing things like that, to getting massages. So is there anything you all do in space after a daily workout to help your body recover?
Well, I'll have to talk to my crewmates about the massage piece, but I'm not sure we're going to be able to work that one in. So obviously I haven't been up there yet, so I'm not quite sure. I'm sure Mark can add in here, but I have heard that the recovery time actually up there is quicker. It doesn't take as long when you have that real hard squat workout and your legs are just aching the next day. As far as I understand, is oftentimes that's not the case on orbit. So, Mark, I don't know if you want to add on that.
Well, yeah, in orbit, I mean, you think of 22 hours out of the day, you're floating around with no weight or no load on your body, so the recovery is much quicker. I mean, we do squatting and deadlifting every single day, 7 days a week for 6 months. And we haven't had any overtraining injuries or any muscle tears or anything like that. So the recovery actually comes pretty quickly.
That's awesome.
All right, I really, really hate to have to wrap this up because I think it's been an awesome discussion, but we are out of time. And I want to thank all the panelists. I think this was really neat to hear from all these different perspectives, and we should try to have this hangout again. So we encourage everybody to follow everyone who's training or preparing, and Mike for your mission. So thanks again, everybody, for joining, and we look forward to following your mission in space. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.